Hey guys, welcome to Thrive Bites, the official podcast of Dr. Colin Zhu, aka the Chef Doc. On every episode, I talk with health and wellness experts from all over the world, such as doctors, chefs, dietitians, coaches, and many more. And I sit down with them and have casual conversations about plant-based lifestyle, how to elevate our emotional resilience, and what it really means to thrive. And I bring all of this to you. So let's get to this week's episode. Okay, guys. Well, welcome to another episode of Thrive Bites. I'm your host, Colin Zhu, and thank you for listening on. Today, I have a awesome guest for you today. His name is Dr. David Sabgir. Say hi to everyone, David.
Hey, everybody.
For those of you who don't know who he is, I am so humbled and honored to introduce you guys to him. He is the CEO of Walk with a Doc. He's a cardiologist from Ohio, and I would definitely let him share his story. But Walk with a Doc is an organization that spans 500 plus chapters all around the world, 48 U.S. states, and I believe 29 countries from the last review that you guys had. And he's been featured in CNN Heroes, many different types of publications, CNN, Time, U.S. News, and World Report, and probably would take the entire episode just to name them all. So thank you so much for coming on to the show and for sharing your story with us today.
It's an honor, Colin, and thank you for doing such a great podcast.
Thank you very much. So I would like to start off by asking you, I really like to know the purpose and the story about why my guests do what they do. So I would like to know your individual story. What has inspired you? I know that you're a cardiologist, and then you went through your own practice and ultimately created Walk with a Doc. But what was the point A to point B and the inspiring steps in between?
Sure. I wish it was a better answer than out of frustration, but that's how it started. I did my residency and fellowship at Ohio State from 97 to 03. And during that time, we were given maybe up to an hour with patients, and would talk about the stents or bypass, blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, etc. And it would still, maybe I talk fast, but it would allow me a lot of time to get at what I felt was the root of the problem. Sedentary lifestyle being a big contributor, not the only root. Mm-hmm. And I felt I was really good at it. I thought I was connecting with the patients, and I even told my attending, hey, wait till Mrs. Smith comes back in 6 months. I changed her. She's going to start walking 150 minutes every week, and we're going to see her blood pressure drop, her weight go down, etc. And it took me many years to get through my dense head that it just wasn't working. Mm-hmm. Patients were coming back, and despite what I felt were really great conversations, they were fruitless. I didn't want to do this for the next 30, 35 years of having these conversations that weren't going anywhere. So out of frustration at my, ability to affect change in my patients, I wanted them to say no to my face. I wanted them to tell me, no, I won't go to the park with you on Saturday with your family. And, it was a patient sometime in the late fall of 04, and it was really magical from that point forward.
Yeah, that's interesting because you started very early on in your career to actually gain that sense of frustration. I could, like all medical students and graduates, we're just like supercharged to be able to do good, for our patients through the avenues, also known as our specialties, to be able to cater towards them. And I would say probably for most of our specialties, whether it's nephrology, kidney disease, or even just, surgery or critical care, you would find some way, shape, or form for chronic lifestyle-related diseases to affect your own specific patient demographics. And I'm similar to you, where, also frustrated to be able to see patients not get better, whether it's a lack or a fault in our healthcare system, or just not the proper infrastructure to be able to support these people. And a simple conversation, a simple verbiage of eating less and moving more is just simply not enough.
Totally agree. It wasn't working for me.
Yeah. So when you started this organization, what kind of obstacles or challenges did you face in the infancy when you first got started?
Yeah, great question. And there were many more than I expected. There were never enough to, well, actually I did. We stopped it at the end of the first year. And the biggest thing was finding doctors. There was I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and there was a local restaurant company that's actually international, and they shared interest with me right away. But, basically after the first walk, that they wanted to go regional and get really big with this. And that ended up not happening. But what that led to was my practice hired an executive director. And when this field decided, when we ended up not doing it, she went and talked to 11 suburbs around the Outer Belt to see if they wanted to do Walk with a Doc at their parks, and they were all over the moon excited about it. And all I had to do was come up with, 4 doctors a month for 11 parks, and I was on the phone calling docs, and oh my gosh, it just wasn't working. They, no one, of course, had heard about Walk with a Doc at that point, and people had soccer games in the morning, or I wasn't getting a response. So actually had to cancel at the end of our first year of 05 after a lot of progress. So that was the biggest one right away.
Now, was it the doctors, besides obviously at that time, 04, 05, you guys were new, but what was the main reason why doctors didn't want to sign up? Was it because they didn't understand the concept, or they felt that, that there was no point in devoting energies or resources into something like this?
It was probably all that, Colin. And it became really hard to keep getting all those rejections. I mean, I was getting one yes for every 7,500 calls, and I realized that it just was not going to work. And I think it's for the reasons you mentioned.
And then when was I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, in their defense, I was super excited about it, but it hadn't played out for longer than, 5-6 months. So I didn't know if I was just crazy and off the norm, and maybe this was just something myself and maybe like 20 other docs in the country would like, or if it would have more of a mainstream appeal. I didn't know at that point.
So where was the turning point, for the organization? What allowed you to say, like, hey, this is starting to become like something?
Yeah. Well, there were multiple levels of that. I did feel, with each patient visit, to be able to offer them this as, outside of the box, we'll be there on Saturday morning. The responses were really good from the patients, also from corporations and community partners really liked it. So for a while, again, it was the docs. So we took 2006 off. And then my wife, I give her all the credit, said, look, you've really missed it this year. You feel it needs to be part of the way people practice medicine. Go back to that original park. Don't worry about the 11 parks and just do it organically. Let it grow if it grows one at a time. And so that's what we did.
Hey guys, we're going to be taking a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Thrive Bites. Let's get back to the interview. And what was the patient's, when you started back, let's just say from ground zero, we're going to call it ground zero. What did your patients, what were their response when you first started this and continued?
Yeah, so it was really good. I mean, if you're going to have a certain coefficient of patients say, this is the greatest thing, I've been waiting for something like this, yes, I will be there on Saturday. And then you'll have the other end of the spectrum where they won't laugh at you because that's rude, but they'll, you can kind of see behind their eyes that there's no intention. And what I've learned over the years is you'll never know. So the gruff 67-year-old guy that doesn't get out much, he may become one of your most loyal walkers. So that's been a fun thing. You never know. But people, whether they go to your walk with a doc or not, that you're leading as a practitioner, they genuinely appreciate, acknowledge what you're doing. And I think they I know because we get the feedback from all over the country, they like to see that in their healthcare provider.
So you're saying that, it's one thing for a provider or a healthcare practitioner to be able to just kind of convey messages of prevention and wellness in the actual office type setting, or maybe in a higher level acute care, or maybe in a hospital setting. But it's one way to counsel people, but it's another way to kind of be that role modeling type of situation for them.
Yeah, exactly. Walk the talk. And we have a wonderful leader, Dr. Andrew Freeman, and who's been with us now for over 10 years in Denver. And the way he says it is there's no better way to show you care about a patient than showing up outside the office to meet with them, talk with them, hang out. And, as physicians, we've done some work with RWJ, and we've seen, and, of course, I've felt this personally, is we get as much out of it as the community members do. It goes a long way for me, building my resilience and, avoiding the burnout. And we've heard that from hundreds of our doctors.
So how does, for someone that's never heard of Walk with a Doc, can you briefly go into the infrastructure on whether if it's a healthcare provider that can set this up as a chapter, or if it's a fellow patient that wants to come in and maybe find a chapter?
Yeah, I'd love to share that. The anatomy of a walk is that. Let me tell you about the one I do. It's at High Banks Park in northern Columbus, and we meet every Saturday for an hour. In the really cold weather, we're inside a mall, but I would say over 98% of our walks are outside, and we really try to employ nature because the health benefits, as you know, are incredible. So the healthcare provider will talk for 5 minutes, maybe 10 at the beginning of the session. That really creates that social connection that we feel is probably equally important, if not more, than the physical activity component. Dr. Murthy, our prior Surgeon General, really shined a wonderful light on social isolation and what we can do. So I think that component's really important. And then we really keep it simple. We walk at our own pace, our own distance. We break off in 2s, 3s, 4s. And that way, no one's having to walk too fast or too slow. And it's that combination of physical activity, education, social connection, and nature that we really feel can make a big difference. And I would say about 95-ish% of our leaders are physicians, and the other 5% are APPs. We have a lot of nurse practitioners and physician assistants doing it. And thanks to our COO, Rachel Habash, and Brian Romy, our program coordinator, it is super turnkey. They've got it down to a science. We're getting about 4 or 5 calls a day from either doctors or community members. And if you want to start one in your community, we have all the templates, paperwork, ideas for you to flush out the providers in your area.
Yeah, that's great. And it is, I definitely concur with that. If you go on their website, it is very super turnkey in terms of, in terms of their membership levels and how to sign up and, what are the packages in terms of individual, small groups or organizational, type of, membership. So, they make it very, very easy and simple to be able to join and open up. I know from my personal experience, I used to work as a locums tenens physician, a traveling doc. And one of my very first assignments, I was on a Indian health preservation, and nothing to do with Walk with the Doc, but basically it was a clinic right on the reservation, and they had a dirt path, probably, one loop, one dirt path, and 5 of those loops equal a mile. And just for myself and for my own personal health, I just decided to walk after lunch around 12:30ish. And then over time, I started to have my health staff walk with me. And then after a while, we started having 5 or 6 of our staff members walk with me as well. And I still continue that to this day. Currently, I'm in Los Angeles. And so it does make a huge, huge difference when you see, not only when you see someone else do it, but when you see your own doctor, doing it. It just goes infinitely and exponentially way more when you see your own fellow doctor doing it. And I'm sure you get this, David, as well, is that, you learn a lot about them. And when you learn a lot about them behind the scenes, you're able to connect more.
Oh, so much. I need to get you a shirt since you're doing Walk with a Doc. I love it. Dr. Rishi Manchanda talks about upstream medicine, and couldn't agree with him more on just going deeper than what we can get in our 15, 20-minute visits. It's a whole new ball game.
What have you been hearing from your global chapters? Do you notice any differences in terms of, I guess, neighborhoods or people in cities? Do you notice any differences or similarities when you guys have expanded internationally?
So we've seen a lot of growth that surprised me. I didn't know, I'm in Ohio, and we have pretty big sedentary rates. And when I go to conferences in bigger cities like LA or New York, see so many people walking. So I didn't even know it would fly in those areas, let alone in Europe, where I know the average person walks like 15,000 steps a day. But in Portugal, it's growing like crazy. I think we're almost at 20 chapters out there. And this is, I don't know, Colin, but I think it's maybe mimicking what's going on with the fast food industry with growth, and sedentary lifestyles maybe going with it as all our lives are becoming more and more automated. That the need appears to be more universal than I expected. The Philippines have some incredible chapters with over 500 people.
Wow.
Dr. Joy Vallejo and Dr. Mona Lisa. It takes often a passionate leader like yourself that they can create incredible change that can span a large part of the country, and that's been a blast to watch.
Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. I mean, for me, I'm a huge passion for traveling, and I think walking and to kind of up it a little bit, I also do marathons and triathlons, and I honestly feel like the best way to explore one's neighborhood or city or anything like that is really getting back out there in terms of walking and just using your two legs. And I like to add to the point of what you're saying before about being in nature. I think that's one thing that we have kind of disregarded over time. You were saying about how our lives are becoming more and more automated, and there's been a lot of studies and research, especially out of Japan. They find that there's a lot of great health benefits when you are inserting yourself back into nature. And it's kind of sad, with climate change and everything like that. There's a lot of our environment that's being more destroyed for various reasons. And if we can get back into nature and get back to that, basic connection with it, not just for walking, for various activities as well, it has a multiplicative, effect.
So true. Isn't it weird how it's like the simplest things are the ones that make the biggest difference? Dr. Suzanne Hockenmiller is one of our leaders out of Iowa. She's really into forest bathing, and she's shown me data that's just awesome. And there's this great leader in Jackson Hole, Christian Beckwith, who created a conference called Shift through the center of Jackson Hole, and they bring together nature experts and as well as medicine. And the data they're presenting out of Earth Labs and at UW is so powerful. 120 minutes a week can make a massive difference. So we're trying to do everything we can to get all our walks outside.
Definitely. Hey guys, we're going to be taking a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Thrive Bites. Let's get back to the interview. Let's go back to basics for a little bit, and especially addressing our patients. And I would imagine in more urban and more city-like environments, or you could speak to the opposite. What are the common misconceptions with just walking and the ability to start, and how do you address that?
The biggest misconception is that it doesn't get the job done. And what I tell patients is whether you walk 2 miles or run 2 miles, you're getting the same benefit. It just may take you a little longer. And if it takes you 30, 40, 50 minutes to walk a couple miles, that's 30, 40, 50 minutes of moderate physical activity, which is, as we know, the miracle drug and the magic bullet. So we encourage just to take baby steps, boiling it down to the simplest thing. There's so many reasons that we don't do it. What I hear most from patients, I think, is the misperception that they're getting enough physical activity at work or at home when you really flush it out. As you know, it's not as much as there's a lot of room to improve our health more.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the fact that with technology, some of the benefits we gain is, collecting health data. And as you've seen over time, we've been having, obviously we've had our smartphones, and now we got watches now. It does track. And it's nice to know the in-between steps, right? So, but the thing is that, for at least for me, I always tell them, hey, if you have X amount of steps, I want you to do 1,000 or 2,000 steps more, and just kind of, like you said, do baby steps, but, have something to prescribe to, push the envelope a little bit more. What is your opinion about these health devices?
Personally, I love mine. I have a Garmin, and I'm addicted to looking at the steps. I get nervous and I do encourage my patients to get them, and there's all kinds of entry points. I mean, you don't need a Garmin wristwatch to track your data. You can do it with probably a $4 pedometer you wear on your belt. I love it because it keeps us accountable.
Mm-hmm.
But I get nervous with patients because every time you enter a new layer, it to me, it becomes a barrier to the patient. So it's always an individual thing. I tell them that it keeps us honest, it keeps us accountable, but we don't need it. I maybe inappropriately worry that the patient's not going to go get started until they get the pedometer on their belt or their wrist.
Right, right. I think back in the day before GPS, we had MapQuest, right? I don't know if they're still around, but I remember, just mapping out the distances, when I had to do a training run for a race back in the day, and I would, figure out, how long something is. And you can easily just do that. I even went as far as driving my car using the odometer to see how far a certain loop would be. So you're absolutely right. You don't need to, have a certain smartphone or have a smart watch to be able to track it. And I wouldn't, I'm sure you would agree, you wouldn't want to wait until to have something like that. A pedometer is very, very cheap to obtain. If you don't have that, then, you can just map out, how many loops you want to walk in your own neighborhood, and to just kind of push the envelope. If you want to do 5 walks around, 5 loops around the block, then the next time you just do 6 loops or 7 loops, something as simple as that.
Absolutely.
So I love it. And I definitely want to conclude. And I love asking my guests how they personally thrive. I think the centerpiece of the show is really understanding what pushes them forward and what gets them up in the morning. And obviously you yourself, David, you've been a trailblazer, I would probably say your whole life, being that, not just starting from the organization, because, you had to have gone through, something and experienced something before you went into medicine to be able to have that passion and push them forward. So how do you personally thrive yourself?
It's nice of you. I'm not sure my parents would call me a trailblazer. I think they probably would have called me for a long time. So right now we're very blessed to have 540 chapters. And I honestly feel like if we don't hit 5,000, I will have dropped the ball. So what drives me, I love my days. I know Lance Armstrong once said I have good days and great days. And I have mostly great days. And I think it's working with our team, Rachel and Brian, and the thousands of volunteers around the country, and this positive movement. I still write Lipitor, and, my patients still take metformin or insulin shots and things like that. But I finally feel like we're able to pay down on the principle. And I want to see 5,000 chapters in my lifetime. And that's what's driving me, along with, a really supportive family and work environment. So I'm extremely fortunate, and I wake up every morning and can't wait to hear who we're gonna get to talk to, and just it's very easy to thrive right now.
That is a beautiful, beautiful message. And my second part of this question is, for those in the audience that are listening in, what are the best 3 tips you can tell them, to either start a chapter or just start walking in general? What are 3 tips that they can kind of implement right now?
Well, if you are a provider, I would say, a healthcare provider, I would say you have nothing to lose by calling us or emailing us at at Walk with a Doc, or our number is 614-714-0407. Check it out. You really have nothing to lose. We have plenty of robust scholarship opportunities thanks to people and corporations believing in us. So I would encourage you to check us out as far as starting. If walking is not your thing, my second recommendation would be just be patient and be persistent. This has been an unbelievable roller coaster ride, and there's certainly downs to go with the ups, but they're mostly ups. So whatever your bag is, I say just go for it and be persistent. And I've been doing this for 15 years, and that cliche for me is finally true. It wasn't for the first 34 years of my life, but it's, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And I honestly feel that way. So I would encourage you to do that. In regards to walking, number 3, if you're not currently doing this, it's hard to get out of bed to prevent a heart attack that's going to happen in 2035. I don't do it for that. So do it for all the wonderful things that that moderate physical activity or vigorous physical activity brings you. Colin, you obviously have drinking the Kool-Aid with with marathons and triathlons. You know exactly, but there's bound to be a few people in the audience that have not done it. Just start small, get it done. What it does for your self-esteem, everything is so much better. We've got on our website 100 reasons to walk with hyperlinks. And if it's not walking, if it's swimming or rock climbing or whatever it is, just go for it. I'm one of these evangelists that just feels it makes everything better. And that's part of why we do what we do every day.
Yeah. I love it. I'm definitely going to include the email, the website, and the phone number, in the show notes later on when the episode gets released. Before we conclude, anything to look forward to on the horizon with Walk with the Doc? Anything new coming up?
Yeah, so we have this wonderful partnership with the Haas Avocado Board, and we're going to be doing our first real media splash in New York in a couple weeks. So we're excited to see how that goes and how we can flush people out. And the other thing we're doing is starting a very economical membership program where people can get these cool, heavy membership cards that when you drop them on a wooden table, they clink. Like my friends that have these like credit cards that I'm jealous of. So we're going to have Walk with a Doc membership cards, and we're really excited to focus on the walker and how we can just build the infrastructure of our chapters and provide hopefully even more than Rachel Bryan and the rest of us are doing on a regular basis. We're really excited about 2020.
So am I. So, David, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I really, really appreciate you taking out the time and for your dedication on expressing your passion through the power of walking. And I'm so glad that the whole world gets to enjoy it as well. And I also wish and hope that you will get towards that 5,000 chapter. So, definitely going to be supporting you along the way.
Colin, you're the best. Thank you for the opportunity. I think what you're doing is wonderful.
Thank you very much. Hey, guys, this has been another episode of Thrive Bites. Thank you so much for listening on, and please like and follow us, and please follow us weekly here on Thrive Bites. Thanks again, David.
Oh, my pleasure.
Hey, guys, that was another episode of Thrive Bites. If you like that episode, please subscribe and follow weekly for new episodes. And don't forget to rate us on Apple Podcasts.